It was a cold and rainy morning when I started this piece. I found it dreary and absolutely dreadful. It's a bit out of the ordinary for me to find rainy days dreary. Normally, it excites me. The smell of wet earth, the sound of the drops hitting the ground. It's soothing, and it usually perks me up. But today it left me feeling quite melancholy. The day before, though, was warm and sunny. A perfect day to climb out onto my New York City fire escape and take pictures of my neighbor's peach tree. I don't think they had this tree much before the past winter. The growing season before, they had grapes whose vines literally grew into my room. Summers are hot, so I kept the window open and let the plants come in welcomingly. I was excited when I saw the tree blossom right outside my window. The blossoms are quite pretty to look at. I wonder if the fruit will be sweet. Because it was a rainy day, I thought, what a perfect time to paint or draw or art the blossoms. I wanted something colorful, not too simple as it would bore me, and not too complex as it would frustrate me. This worked pretty well. I quickly distracted myself from the feeling of dread and began feeling determined. This is a watercolor painting. The paints were a cheap starter pack from my local craft store. Tubed watercolors are a lot easier to mix for a more variety of colors. I bought these when I had taken a watercolor course in college. I took the course because I was curious about the medium. I had seen many interesting works of art come from watercolors. They were very fluid and transparent. To be honest, I didn't like the medium when I started using it. That actually happens a lot with me. I get inspired to try a new medium, and when I start using it, I tell myself that I will never use the medium ever again because of one reason or another. But I usually am patient enough to try it again. I mean, I spent the money to buy the stuff, so I should at least get my money's worth. I ended up loving painting because of this. Not with watercolor yet, but painting in general, and using color. Watercolors are interesting. For successful watercolor painting, you have to start with very watered down colors and add light layers over it. You have to be careful adding too dark of a color because it's hard to take away color once it's absorbed into the surface. And if you want to add a lot of layers, you have to be careful of making the paint muddy and turning your work into an unattractive dark spot with a hole rubbed through it from trying to remove it. You also can't really paint over something in hopes of hiding an error. The stuff is inherently transparent. Unlike many other paints, watercolor is not very forgiving. It is almost impossible to fix a mistake if you are using watercolors on a lightweight paper. The paper I used here is actually one of the nicer kinds for watercolor. It is cold press Arches paper. There's a high percentage of cotton in it, which makes it more absorbent. I actually used the back side of the paper and it worked just fine. This was a scrap piece, so there were already marks on the front of the paper. I like to salvage any materials that still hasn't been used to its fullest capacity. It works out for me. I don't have to spend too much on new supplies. I chose to paint these blossoms in watercolor despite my dislike of the medium because it is quick. I painted this the day after my first video, so my wrist was already tired, but I needed to put up more content so I couldn't give myself any more excuses. One of the reasons I wanted to start making YouTube videos was to make more art. I have always enjoyed making art, but was never motivated to make it continuously. Last year, I probably made 3 small pieces in total. I really don't want to lose my artistic ability, and I'm hoping that this will force me to make more art. I liked working on this piece. However, I still haven't really gotten used to using watercolors. I still am not able to envision how a piece will turn out. If you like this piece though, and want to see me make more watercolor paintings, please leave a comment below. You could also comment the next medium you would like to see me work in. I was not really satisfied with a piece after I finished adding my last layers of paint on it. And I did not want to risk making the piece muddy, so I grabbed a pencil and started drawing small hexagons in the background. I did not know how it would turn out, but once I started it, I could not stop until I finished it, because if I stopped at any point before covering the entire background, it would look unfinished. This was seriously a time-consuming process, and I was unsure of whether or not it was worth it to continue. I had to take several breaks because pressing my pencil as hard as I was, making small marks was a strain on my whole hand. Partway through, I considered switching the pencil with a marker, so that I did not have to press as hard. I had these very nice fine point markers that I barely used. They were barely used because I used to value them so much that I only wanted to take them out when I was going to make a masterpiece. I didn't want to use up all that ink unnecessarily, but that never happened. And fortunately, unfortunately, the markers were dried out. It was unfortunate because I didn't get my money's worth out of them, but fortunate because it forced me to continue with the pencil. I really like the texture of pencils juxtaposed with watercolor paints. I quite like the sound of a pencil being sharpened. I don't know yet if you see me sharpening my pencil, but when you do, I left the sound of sharpening pencil in there. It was a bit frustrating sharpening the pencil. I had apparently dropped it too many times and the thing was broken inside. I do hope that you enjoyed watching me paint this. I am almost completely satisfied with it. I think the irregularity of the hexagons adds a nice texture to the piece. It reminded me a bit of a lacy material. The part that I am not satisfied with is the opacity of the subject itself. After finishing the background, I considered painting another layer of color to darken the tree branches. But again, I was too afraid of touching it afterwards due to the fear of mud. It probably wouldn't be too bad. If you would like to see me improve this piece by making it darker, let me know. I will be brave just for you. Thanks again for watching this. It's still a bit of a frustrating process making these videos. Right now, I cannot come up with enough content to talk about. What would you like to hear me talk about in the next video? Also, it is very difficult to edit the video. My computer is a bit old and the video editor would not allow me to play the video smoothly. There are parts of the video, I think, that I don't touch the piece at all, and I'm just hovering over it. Ideally, I'd cut those parts out so that you can have an all-action video. But alas, I am not going to spend money that I do not have on a new computer. It's also a bother because I don't know whether or not I'm spoiling anything by talking about it before it happens on screen, like the pencil sharpening thing, for example. There's my little rant. Hopefully, I can figure out some way to be able to view the video smoothly. Maybe lowering the frame rate when previewing the video might work. Anyway, I thank you. I'll leave you with a bit of stock music now, provided by YouTube. If you haven't yet already, and you enjoyed watching this video, please subscribe and like. Thank you. Goodbye. before starting my painting, I wanted to do something different. I wanted to antiquate my paper by putting fire to it. You should not try this at home, but if you must, you should prepare yourself with a bucket of water to douse the flame and have good ventilation because it does get quite smoky. I freaked out burning this paper when I could not blow the flame out, and when my spray bottle stopped working. I did not use this paper for this painting because I burned too much of it. I may salvage the usable scraps and use it in a future video. I don't know. If you have suggestions, please let me know. But again, be responsible when playing with fire.